Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot. I'm a real-world airline pilot, and in today's video I'm going to show you the A380X from FlyByWire. We're going to take it for a full flight as we look at some of the differences from the A320 and we see what this long-awaited aircraft is all about. This airplane has just been released by FlyByWire, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it is freeware. That's right, it is completely free for those of you who use Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Just head to FlyByWire and get their installer, and then you can find it on there. You're going to see in today's video all the different features of it, some of the unique parts of it that make it so different from the A320. We're going to take it, for, like I say, for a full flight. We're going to depart from Haneda and also land back into Haneda in Japan, Tokyo, using this fantastic ANA livery for it. The A380 is, of course, doesn't really need an introduction, but I could give you a little bit of one. It is the world's largest passenger airliner. First flew in 2005, having initially been launched in 2000 as a project. Only 254 were built in the end, which is a bit of a shame. It's a lovely airplane. Passengers love being in the cabins because it is quieter than most airplanes. It's so quiet in the cabin during takeoff. If you've ever been a passenger on one, it's a real treat. It can hold up to an unbelievable 853 passengers if you were to put it all in economy, although not many airlines, if any, ever chose that option, most preferring to head into the 400 to 500 passenger area with lots of different cabins with fancy seats and bars and all sorts of things like that. It's a quick machine that you can use to fly long distances in a surprising speed. It's not slow, even if it might look like it would be. Cruising at Mach decimal 8.5, and it can go faster than that as well. I have been overtaken by it while I fly in my Boeing 787, which is what I currently fly in the real world. So in today's video, I'll hopefully be able to give you some context about what this aircraft is like and what the real world A380s get up to and how they interact in the world of aviation. One of the interesting things about it is it's the only super heavy category of airplane for wake turbulence. Wake turbulence is what airplanes leave a wake behind in the air. You can't see it, so it's quite dangerous, but if you fly through it, it gives you quite strong turbulence. And because this airplane is so big and heavy, it of course generates more of that than any other airplane. It's just a byproduct of producing lift off those big wings. So airplanes have to have more space behind it. It has a maximum takeoff weight of an absolutely ludicrous 575,000 kilograms, so 575 tons. For context, my Boeing 787 that I fly typically would be in around 250 tons is a pretty common sort of area for the weight to be on one of those. So this is 575, well over double the weight of a maximum weight 787. So yeah, quite a remarkable machine. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll start off by looking at the exterior, and then we'll power on, do a full cold and dark setup and take you through a full flight in this machine, and maybe answer some questions about how some of the slightly more unusual systems of this machine are used. Again, a huge thank you to FlyByWire for putting so much effort in. We've all been so excited. This has been announced for years actually. This project has been underway now, and it has delivered and then some. For this to be a freeware is absolutely ludicrous. It's just stunning, and you're going to see in today's video all the different amazing features it has, and as well as we'll see how capable it is with the underlying systems and flight management profiles and computers all working properly to give you an experience that you can confidently take onto VATSIM and fly airline routes in no trouble at all. And if you've come from the A320, you'll find this airplane particularly familiar, and you'll adapt to it very easily. I can tell you now, if you fly the A320, this will not be a big challenge for you. It is so similar. It's fantastic. Right, let's get started. As ever, let's start by taking a look around the outside of the FlyByWire A380X. Now, this isn't, like I say, a review. This is more of a just showing you what this aircraft is. It's a freeware product. You can all go and have it for free, which is just amazing and remarkable. But if I were to be reviewing it, it is so impressive to see the exterior model look this good. This is by far the most detailed A380 exterior we've ever seen. It is absolutely fantastic, captures the silhouette of the aircraft perfectly from every single angle, and is full of details, including really impressive texturing and modelling. If you look up closely, there's some distinctive things about the A380, such as its three, I'm not sure if these are angle of attack vanes or pitos, or I think they're angle of attack of some variety, probably for use in the backup systems if there's a failure of some variety of the normal. But anyway, yeah, they're there, you know, and they're a distinctive feature of the A380. As we move around it, you'll see that not only is the texturing excellent, and you can see that with the sort of marks and stains and ripples around the fuselage. When you get the sun on this, it looks great. As you move the camera down, you can see that also with the water stains coming off the windows. So you see this all adds up to, you know, this is well above payware level of quality of aircraft, no doubt about it. But it continues. You've got different texturing, for example, the different materials on the door, around the door frame and on the top, that sort of metal protection sort of slide plate they have. And they've got the rain runoff modelled as well, which runs along the top. So these are just examples. There's loads and loads of bits for you to enjoy and look for when you download this. But yeah, it's fantastic. Now, this is the 8K version with an 8K livery. I know that it is hard on performance, and some people may not be able to run that particularly easily, but that's what I'll be using for today's video, just to give you the you know, as much of the experience as FlyByWire have created. You can see it as well as we move up to the wheels. Look at these tires. It's just perfect, really spot on. They even have their own branding, FlyByWire, FlyByTire-X. I love it. The details they put in. We know well from the A380NX, their A320 Neo freeware, how good FlyByWire are at developing aircraft, and yeah, it's just paid off. I know this has been in development a long time, but it's been worth the wait. What a gorgeous, gorgeous machine to get to bring into the simulator and for us to get to experience. And as you go around the outside, you'll get a sense of the scale and the weight and size of this aeroplane. It is, of course, vast. You've got all the major features as well. So, of course, you've got your, I believe this is the pack cooling air inlet, and I think this would be the outlet over here. I'm not 100% certain on that. Quite a unique part of the A380, these vents here, but I'm not 100% sure of what they do. A bit of a strange one. As I say, I've not flown an A380, sadly, but there we go. Landing lights built into the wing root. They don't pop out on this aircraft. And look at down the side of the fuselage. Look at the modelling. You've got like these extra, like I say, rain runoff door sills. Fantastic. Really, really great. And just that shape is captured so perfectly. If you ever boarded an A380 from doors 2 around here, you get on, you get to look down the fuselage, you see this strange sort of series of shapes that look very odd from this angle, and there they are all captured, and that massive wing sort of angle there where it drops down. Moving on the wings, slats, and onto the engines. This is a Rolls-Royce, I believe, variant they've given us. Yes, it is. So using the Trent 900 engines, they also look amazing. And what we've got to remember here is that this was entirely done in-house. They've had to build everything. There's no bits that they sort of improved or retextured. This is all been done. And you've even got the drain mast on the bottom, classic sort of modern turbofan style. That stunning. And as you move around the engine pylons, different staining, oil staining and marks and runoff from rain and so on. And same for the exhaust cone. You can see the hottest part of the engine, and there's often some wear, and there's different interesting shapes and formations on these. So yeah, more fantastic work there, no surprise at all. And here's another example of the detail in the modelling. As we get up close, you can see that this little slat track cover is actually 3D. It's modelled there, and as you get up to the engine pylon, you can see here this little intake. Not sure what that does, but there it is. It's all here and modelled to fantastic detail. Whilst the sun's out, let's take a look on the top of the wing. It's a large and clean wing. The A380 does have that, but as you get to the movable surfaces, you can see the streaks of oil and so on that have moved down past it. There's our outboard ailerons, sort of 3 separate panels, because the A380 doesn't have inboard ailerons like long-haul Boeing aircraft, so it has its own little system for running those, which we'll talk about later on once they get it into the air. That old Airbus style winglet, this is the last airplane they did with that before moving on to the larger style and the sharklets that we see now, and all the static wicks modelled perfectly. Look at that, lovely. If we go underneath the wing and we move along, we'll see the fuel dump system modelled and in place. I don't actually know a lot about the A380 specific fuel dumping, but there it is. It is here, which is great to see. I wonder if we'll try it. Well, maybe we'll give it a go on this flight. Yeah, lovely. It looks fantastic. And it's a joy. It's a joy to look at. I'm a huge fan of the A380. I've been very excited about this, and it's just not something we've seen in simulators very often, if at all. So, and certainly not of this quality. Now you've got the main gear doors. Now we're getting a few textures popping in and out. That's due to the way my my camera is set up when I film these videos, so don't worry too much about that. But there we go. So yeah, underneath, lots of streaks, marks, grime, oil. Looks fantastic. and it continues all the way down. These will be the radio altimeters. Look at that, and even they're modelled in 3D. I mean, this is the thing that adds up over time. You've got these, like I say, all these different 3D modelling exhausts. These will be probably toilet pressurization exhaust vents, I'm guessing, back here, and then all sorts of other drains and vents. APU up at the very back, sat there with nice bits of, again, wear on the metal around it, and the heat of the exhaust pipe are just stunning. Like I say, easily above even payware quality. This is exceptionally good. As we move up the massive tail on the A380, which is required because it's quite a short aeroplane, so it has a huge tail, and of course it has 4 engines, so it has a big potential for if there's an engine failure on the outboard engine, then the airplane needs a lot of rudder control to bring the nose around the right way. So here it is, huge with 2 separate panels. Not something we see very often these days either, but there they are. It's a slightly older style of doing redundancy on a long-haul aircraft. If you look at this, I think this would be the logo light as well, bedded into the tailplane. Look at that. Yeah, these will be shining up on the tail to light up that beautiful logo on this rather lovely A&A livery. Absolutely love it. Fantastic. And look at that, you've got the different colours on the hubs for the main landing gear. Lots and lots of wheels on the A380, including steering on these rear trucks. These actually steer on the ground in the opposite direction to the nose wheel, so we'll see that as we get the airplane moving. Also, I'll be curious to see, once we get it into the air, how they should sit sort of slightly nose down. It's quite a unique feature of the A380 when it's silhouette on landing. So there we go. I've got nothing to complain about. Not that we could complain anyway. It is freeware, but it is exceptional for freeware, and indeed is just lovely all round. So let's now get it powered up and have a look at the inside. Now, before we do too much, let's get the airplane powered on. But already you can see, even powered off, look at the screens. You can see the sort of this. They've got this texture spot on. This sort of white marks where the screens have been cleaned. These screens attract a lot of dust, and you get a lot of light in flight decks, so it shines across them, and the dust gets in the way quite easily actually. So they're often being wiped down in various ways, and then fingerprints get over them. Especially the NDs, people will point, and then obviously any turbulence or anything, or just by accident, you can end up touching the screen and these greasy fingerprints, which is what you've got here. You can usually see fingerprints on specific parts, maybe that someone was pointing out, often like things like the wind vector, you might see a fingerprint or something, but there we go. So that all looks absolutely amazing. That's true of all these screens, including the EFB. If we click the EFB, it will of course turn on, and this is their version 3. It is just, it's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And you can load in your sim brief just like you can on the A380 and X, and then you can go through and load up your aeroplane. So let's open up some doors, let's attach the jet bridge, bring in a fuel truck, get some ground power units, and let's get some cargo going as well. Get the catering on the back, and then yeah, we can have a look at that on the outside. Oh, they're going to doors 1. There we go. So it all works. Love seeing the 380 on the EFB. What an exciting time this is, eh? So now if we come outside, yes, there we go. An aeroplane in the act of being serviced. Jetty attached just to the front. We are parked on a stand that clearly we could not fit on, although maybe we could. I'm not sure where we would park in Haneda, but anyway, this is a huge airplane, so we're sticking out over the red line quite a lot. However, the taxiway is well away over there, so that's should be pretty good here where we are. Okay, so the inbuilt checklists are not modelled at the moment, so you can't use those, but there is amazing documentation available on FlyByWireSim.com, and in there they have a beginner's guide that will also take you through which buttons to press and in which order and so on. However, this is an Airbus, and if you've flown the A320, this is all going to be incredibly familiar to you, and you're going to see why, as we're going to go through a full flight today, of course. So first of all, we're going to power on the airplane and give it some electrical power, and then we can start going through our systems. So to do that, we need to make sure the airplane is secure. So we're going to check that all the engine masters are off, of course all 4 of them. The parking brake is on. There we go, parking brake on. Speed brake lever is retracted. The flaps lever is up. We've got the weather radar off. Engine mode selector, which is on the overhead panel, is in the norm position. Thrust levers are at idle. Gear is down. And the wipers, just don't want to scratch that lovely windscreen, are both off and off. So there we go, in a good position. Next, we're going to power on the airplane, so we're going to go to our batteries. Now, a theme of this airplane is going to be that there is just loads more of everything. So, you know, you saw there, we've got 4 engines. Well, we've also got 4 batteries instead of just 2. So we're going to have the essential battery, going to have the APU battery, going to have battery 1 and battery 2. So we turn all of those on, and now the airplane should be in its sort of battery only state, which will only give us a few screens and so on. This is just sort of very, very basic equipment when the airplane's just running on its own battery power. But that's all worked nicely, and now we're going to turn on the external power. We can see it's available, and again we've got 4 external powers instead of 1 on the A320. You use 2 on an aircraft like the Boeing 787, the aircraft I fly, but yeah, you get 4 on the A380. It has so many bits of electronic equipment and obviously so many passengers. It's going to be a thing about the A380 is it's not quite to scale, although it's it's not quite twice as long as, let's say, another long haul aircraft like 777. It is, however, in magnitudes heavier, even though you wouldn't think it would be. So it's just a more dense machine with so much more in it and so many more systems and toilets, because it can take, in theory, up to 800 passengers. Absolutely incredible. But there we go. Now we have an airplane that is coming to life as we would expect. So let's get the screens all set up so we can all see what's going on. So this is done again just like you'd expect on your A320. MFD to do the lower one down here. That's a multifunction display, so that's what that dial there is for. The OIT, I believe, is this screen, which is not functioning at the moment, so we won't worry about that. So that is all good. Then we're going to do the same for the co-pilot, just to make the flight deck look symmetrical. Just get it all at a reasonable brightness, and the MFD, and yeah, there we go. And what I will also do is turn up the engine and status displays, which are hidden down here. Next steps then, all pretty obvious. So it's going to be a case of getting the APU up and running, really. I think we'll just do it in that order. So I'm going to run the fire tests. They all work, so that's all looking good. And I'm going to make sure that the I'm just going to turn on the APU. Master switch on. Brings up the APU page automatically, and this is where you're going to see that they've gone to so much effort on the systems depth. It's fantastic. Flap moving, flap open, so that's good. That's at the back, and you see all the systems here. I mean, just look at it. It all just works. It's got the UTC time, gross weight. It's fantastic. So there it is. So now we can press the start switch, and we'll see it run through its start sequence. Here's some clunks of electricity in the flight deck, and there you go, N2 spinning. So that's coming to life. Some other things we can do in the meantime is I'm going to make sure that the radio panels are on. So we've got our radio management panels are both switched on. Going to make sure that we could do some frequency if we want. Done the fire tests, and yeah, we are going to just let the APU start up. So whilst that power's on, well, there it is, in fact, available. You've got 2 generators, generator A and B. They've got 0% load because we've got external power at the moment. And then it just goes back to the door page. Look at that, that's cool. Upper and main doors. It's quite clever how they've done that. Sort of overlaid on top of each other. Haven't seen that before. Excellent. Anyway, what we're going to do is turn off the external power. And make sure you have avail there, of course. So those go to avail, which means they're not in use. I am going to now, if we look at our APU page, should see the load on those generators. Yeah, there you go, there's the load. Fantastic. Yeah, the electrical systems are clearly modelled here, which is just really cool, really great. So we're on our own power. Time to run through the overhead panel sort of flow. Again, very familiar to those of us from the 320. So wiper off. This is for cooling other people around the airplane. The crew oxygen on, and we can see down here that we have lots of oxygen, so that's good. 1800 psi. As we move up the flight deck, we want to basically see all the lights out, all the systems in norm, probe window heat in auto, and then we're going to put nav on our IRSs. 1, 2, 3. Get those aligning, and then just check there's no funny lights up here. This ground HF data link thing is not modelled, so we won't worry about that. Next, we're going to go into the middle and down here and do the lights. So I'm going to arm the emergency exit lights. No mobile to auto. Seatbelt signs are off at the moment because we haven't got fuel on. I'm going to put the nav lights and logo lights to auto. Logo light doesn't not model at the moment. There we go. And I'll leave the rest of them off. Strobe light can go to auto. Anti-ice is off. Engine start in norm. Cabin pressurization should all be in auto. And then when leaving the air, you can set your temperatures here, but we're just going to leave those alone. So it's in the purser select, so the cabin crew can set the temperature for the cabin. Pretty cool. And yeah, everything else should just be just like it is on 320. And then we're going to turn on all our fuel pumps, of which there are loads. The fuel system is a whole topic on its own. It is so different to the 320 and even the 787 and other long-haul aircraft. It is quite a complicated one, and again a slightly sort of older style fuel system in some respects. moving up over here, we can NSS data event. I don't know what this means. I'm going to turn that on to get rid of the white light. I don't like seeing white lights on an Airbus. And we are going to leave engine manual start switches all guarded, no white lights, and everything's in. And this is a backup radio panel, just like in the same place you have it on the 320. Next, we're going to come down into the center console. Into the glare shield, and I'm going to run down, make sure that we have the Q&H set 1013, make sure these are all in norm. Landing gear gravity extension is closed and locked, gear is down, auto brakes are disarmed, landing gear is showing us with the the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights on this one, and anti-skid is on. Good. Finally, looking down in the center pedestal, there's not really much to do here except double check what we've done. Thrust levers are idle, master switches off, speed brake retract, flaps up, parking brake on, and then we can adjust the floodlights and the integral lighting as we see fit. They've got an ambient light as well, look at that. So yeah, all looking pretty good. Again, we'll go through each of these little sections, so don't worry if I'm skipping over areas. Each one that we need to use for the flight will get discussed, trust me, as we go through. We'll do the EFB shortly, but we can now do our glare shield. What I'm going to have is, this is our EFIS control. Now this is very, very similar to the A320. It looks a little bit different, but it is not. It's not that different. It's fine. We're going to have constraints. We're going to have airports showing. We'll have traffic, and I'll put terrain on for now. And then you can also press these to bring up a needle, such as VOR2, or whichever needle you choose to have displayed there. So let's select VOR1. We're on Q&H, I'll put it into hectopascals of 1013, and this is our flight path vector, the VV button. So it's not going to work right now, and we don't need it. And this is our landing system, landing scales, the ILS, so we don't need that either. The flight director button is tucked away over here, strangely. We'll turn that on a bit later. And then obviously the same on the other side. Altitude and so on to set once we decide on our departure. Good stuff. So let's now load up the FMS, the MCDU. Now, of course, this looks very fancy and different, but it is really, really quite intuitive. I think you'll enjoy using it, and it is still similar to the Airbus MCDU that we have on the A320. So first of all, we do need to set up what we are actually going to do today. So I'm going to go over to my ground services and go to fuel. We're going to have 107 tons of fuel. Now, I'm not going to burn all of that today. It's just to give it a reasonable takeoff weight. So let's up it a bit. Let's go with 125 tons of fuel. These are huge, huge numbers. This airplane takes amazing amounts of fuel, 220 tons of fuel. So it can take as much fuel as a 787 is as a sort of medium weight, 220 tons. That's absolutely crazy how much fuel alone it can carry. But we don't want all that today. So yeah, we'll go for 125.4. That's absolutely fine. And you can see how it's distributed in all these strange ways. Now, I don't know. I know there's a trim tank at the back. The reason you do that is because the airplane could be a bit nose heavy, and that's obviously bad for fuel burn. So you have a trim tank that you can then pump fuel around to or from, and that will adjust the weight and get the balance right. That's something the Boeing 747 did, of course, as well, to get the balance right. The 787 doesn't use this system because I believe the way it's balanced is fine in the first place. It's not too nose heavy, but there we go. So yeah, 125.4, and I'm just going to do instant, and we can refuel, please. So there we go, and that goes in the right place. And payload wise, look at this. You can see your two different decks, and we are going to load in our passengers. So let's have an absolutely ridiculous number. Let's have 400 passengers. It's 8 tons of cargo, and you can see upper deck's mostly full. It's not even, look at that, not even full. Absolutely madness how many passengers fit. So that gives us all of our numbers in here. So what I'm going to do is do instant and load, and you can see here we're taking off not at our max takeoff weight, but above our max landing weight. So there we go. We will adjust the fuel down for the landing in today's video, so we can do it all in one day. But there we go. That is loaded. So then now we have our zero fuel weight, we have our fuel and so on, so we can start loading things in. So first of all, you want to be on FMS1. There are other tabs up here in this top left corner, and you can just use your mouse on the screen. But if you go to surveillance, this is where you control your transponder, the TCAS, and the weather radar. So we want to be, an FCU backup will be, it doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, not there. Okay, so FMS1 is what we want. Good. First of all, we're going to put in the flight number, and to do that you click on the box and then just type it in. Now what I really like is you have obviously all your keyboard down here, But I believe on the 380, and they've modelled all this, look at this, fantastic. And click again, and there's a little surprise, a keyboard. So we're going to go from RJTT, which is where we are, Haneda Airport. I don't know if these work or not. No, sadly not. I don't actually know what these buttons are used for, or this keyboard would be used for, but there we go. Oh, it's not going away properly. Oh, there we go. We'll just cheat. Just close it, please. But yeah, it's there we go. Look at that. Even a bit of scratches around the way it's put away, and its own sound effects, no less. So yeah, RJTT, enter, and we're going to go to RJTT because we're just going to return here. And then that'll go with no alternate, that's fine, but you can of course type in an alternate. Cruise level 220, and again this is great because you can just type it in and that'll cost an next 22 today. Trip wind, we're not really going to have any, so that's not an issue. There we go. So yeah, and that's it really. This is the initialization page. So we've got flight number, routes, alternate. Let's put in Narita actually, RJAA, enter. And yeah, we don't have a company route. Of course, you can now load this in. You could do your request and load it in from SimBrief because there is SimBrief integration. You would find that over in your EFB, and you can just type in your SimBrief username. But I'm not going to use it for today's video. We're just going to type it in ourselves because we're not really going to have much of a flight plan really. And there we go. Then down here you can fiddle around with the next stages. So IRS, just make sure it's aligning, so it's in nav, it's got its position, and it's aligned itself on a GPS position, so that's all good. But you can also get to that, by the way, if you go active and go back to flight plan. You can also go to init and get the init page here. So if you're lost, make sure you're in FMS1, go to active, and then start at init. And then yeah, flight plan. Well, there's nothing in here because we're not doing much of a route for now. What's also interesting is if you go to the init page, you can click down here and it's got these shortcuts. So I can go to departure and it knows we're departing from RJTT. We're going to go from runway 34 right. So you can select the runway. It loads in the information, which is really cool. And then we are going to go with, let me just check the SID I want to use today. We're going to go with the Beckler 3 Alpha. So, or Beckler 2 Alpha, sorry, my database is out of date. There we go. And then we go to temporary flight plan, and you can see all the waypoints have now been put in. So this is just our normal flight plan page. Just like on the A320, we get the yellow line round, and then you go insert temporary. So this means insert the temporary into the active. And there we go. Now we have a route. So that's the general system for using this. It's really, really, really surprising how quickly you'll adapt to this. It looks so different, but actually it's totally fine. There is another way to do that. If you're on the flight plan page, just click on your departure airport and then you can click departure here and it comes up, and then you can do the same thing. And we'll look in the air at some of these other options over here, but all the same features that we're used to from an Airbus MCDU, just in a bit of an easier way because you can just click on it. Now you'll see we have this sort of yellow cursor. This is usually controlled by the pilots using this hand control here. That's what this big thing is for. So you'd have your hand here, and then I think there's a track ball, is it? It's a touchpad on the 787. I think it's a ball on the A380. But yeah, it moves this cursor around. So that goes through, gives us a discontinuity, and then you can scroll down, obviously. And we could, if we wanted now, put in an arrival. If I click on the airport, and then you can put in arrival. But we'll do that later. That's fine for now. So we've got our departure in the flight plan. Good. Well, now nav aids, I'm just going to leave all of this to be completely tuned by the airplane. I am not going to do anything too different to that. So I press return. I'll go to fuel and load. So this is where we put in our performance weights. Now we actually have them. So our zero fuel weight is 341.7. So we'll put that in, 341.7. Enter. Our zero fuel weight CG is 35.57. So put that in, 35.57, enter. Our block fuel is what we have in tanks right now, which is fuel on board 125.4, which is madness, but there it is, 125.4. 200 taxi fuel, it's got some routes and reserves, it's got expected alternate fuel, so you know this is all the same, it loads the whole thing in. How many passengers did we say we had? 400, so we'll put 400 passengers in. There we go. And yeah, there we go. It's so impressive that this page works as you would expect it to, and like the aircraft. So there's our weights, and the final one to do will be, of course, the takeoff performance. Now, at the moment, there is no working takeoff performance in this. There is a performance tab, but it's just going to give you some of the descent things and things like that. So what you're actually going to do is go to make sure you have your ground stuff available, your weights, and then you're going to go to SimBrief, and SimBrief has its own calculator built in. So I'm now going to go to SimBrief, and it's very straightforward. You're literally on the left where you're building a flight plan. You don't need to have a flight plan made. You can just go into a calculator and run it for this aircraft. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so now run those numbers at our takeoff weight, of which is a rather impressive 467 tons. Yeah, there it is, 467. But the numbers we are left with are quite surprising. You'll be amazed at the wing on the A380, how much it can lift. So we're going to have our bleed on, anti-ice off. We're going to take off flaps 1, flex temperature 55. So let's put that in. So flaps 1 and a flex temperature of 55. We're going to have no takeoff shift. Takeoff shift is for if you weren't taking off from the very start of the runway. I'm surprised the A380 has this, because even the 320 for a long time now, it hasn't really mattered. So there's because the GPS would update anyway. But I suppose in the modern day there are actually occasions where you may not have GPS for takeoff, so you might need to use that. So these old features might become useful again. But there we go. So let's put in the speeds now. We've got V1 of, let me find it somewhere on here. V1 137, VR 152, and V2 160. So 137. 152, 160, and then we just double check that, 137, 152, 160. So you can see there is a big split between V1 and rotate. So this is quite classic for a heavy long haul airplane taking off from a runway, and it's not the longest runway in the world either. So yeah, we're going to be trundling along, and even if the engines fail, we have to keep accelerating until we get to 152 and then get in the air, even if the engine fails. Good. We're going to go flaps 1, packs on, anti-ice off, thrust reduction and acceleration height of 1500 feet, which is absolutely perfect. We are taking off effectively at sea level. And I'm going to put transition altitude of, I'm not actually sure, let me just get the chart for our departure. I will show this to you shortly. It's actually quite high, 14,000 feet. Transition. There we go. Right, THS4, I'm going to now, just enter the engine out, there we go. I'm going to now go to our payload and stick in our 35.57. Okay, so what you need to do, actually, you don't get that. The THS4 number is what you get from here. Now it's currently at 39. This is it's a different number, so you need to look on here, and this is measured by the aircraft, so we need to make sure all loading is complete. So we are fully loaded, we have all our passengers and our fuel on board, and it's 39, so I'm going to put 39.0 onto here. Good, and then that is now set up fully for our takeoff. I'm going to just have a look around. Yeah, it looks pretty sensible. Good, so we've done our data, we've done our initialization, we've done our flight plan. We don't need to worry about the secondary. We don't need to worry about the radio nav aids. We've done our weights on the fuel and payload. And finally, we've done our performance for the takeoff. So that is our MCDU setup, as it were, using our div-strip acronym, just like on the A320. Perfect. So the departure we're going to fly is here. Just like on the A320, you can go to Plan on the EFIS control, zoom in, have the constraints showing, and you'll be able to see what is planned. And you would compare this against your chart, of course. 700 feet, then a right turn to Toram, and then Pluto, and then Kaiji. And as you scroll through, you can see it on the screen above us. And I'm going to, there's above 9,000 feet restriction there, above 13,000 feet restriction there. Finally, Bekele, flight level 170. Let's imagine air traffic control have given us our departure clearance, and they've told us flight level 170 is our maximum. So we'll put 170 in. Heading, we're departing off runway 34, but it doesn't matter because we're in an Airbus. I'm getting used to going back to Boeing here. So if I press flight director here, it will clear the heading out, and you'll see that we get the modes we want to climb and nav armed 1FD2, and then 170 to become a flight level over there. Next is the speed. We've already entered our performance speed, so let's click that in, and that will disappear, and we get our V2 of 160. So now this looks like exactly like the A320 PFD all the way across, and good. So pretty happy with that. That is what we would expect. Now, a fun thing you can do on here is if we scroll into Zoom on the EFIS control, you'll bring up the taxi charts, and this is a whole other interesting thing about operating the A380. Whilst that loads, I'm going to go over here and show you that the taxi charts for airports will have specific A380 charts. So if I go here, let's find the chart. There's A340 charts, A350 charts, but we want, of course, the A380 800. There we go. And there we have the routes that we can take. So I'm going to pin that one, and we're going to push back from here, taxi out, so then we can take hotel, then we can take golf, hotel, and then we can take Charlie all the way down to Charlie 1 for a full length departure from 3-4 right. So that's the route, but you can see the green taxiways are the ones we are allowed on. It's quite interesting how different it is to other aircraft. In fact, I'm not even sure we can do that. We might need to go hotel and then echo and then echo 1. That might be easier. Look at that, they have a whole diagram about the clearance that you can expect. Amazing. Amazing. Oversteering taxiway routes available. So yeah, I think we need to be careful around these amber turns. But now it's loaded, and this is a great feature. If you have the A380 linked to your Navigraph account, and which I have added in third party, linked to my Navigraph, what you can do is have this page here, which brings up the airport charts, and you can see where your airport is, and you can taxi around. And if you bring up this arrow, you can see choose a different airport to look at and inspect the runways. But this is something I would look more at for the landing, because this is how you set up the brake to vacate, which is a really fancy auto brake mode. But that is all to come later on. So let's close that for now. That's our departure point, and yeah, you can see our the taxiways we are expecting. And you can keep zooming in. Look at that, really clever. You can just keep zooming in, and then you can get the names and so on there. So let's do that. Let's have it ready to go. I don't see why we don't need the ND anymore. We've looked at our departure route. We've got our performance in. So we are actually getting close to being ready to depart. So what we can start thinking about is the checklist. Now this is different on the A380 as well. If you come inside, down here, we have our sort of control of the systems pages. So when we want to look at the APU or the doors or the air conditioning, and you can see it is all modeled. Look at these, and they've had to do some different sort of graphics. They are quite different to anything I've seen before, because there's just so many different areas to the airplane. But there we go. You can look at all the wheels, loads and loads of wheels and temperatures. But yeah, what we are going to do is go to C/L for checklists. So I'm going to bring that up, and that will appear not on the lower screen but on the upper screen, and then you can scroll through and tick off all the checklists you want. So as I was saying earlier, that you don't actually need this inbuilt checklist because the airplane has its own. The only downside, of course, is it doesn't highlight what you need to do in terms of it won't show the switch in blue. Anyway, the easiest place to actually use this checklist, I find, is to sit in the pilot's seat, move the camera in between. Look at all the hairs on the headrest. This is that 8K texturing, absolutely unreal. Yeah, if we move the camera here, I can see it. You might struggle at home, but yeah, it says cockpit preparation, and then I press a little tick, and it's gear pins and covers removed, tick. Fuel quantity, we have our 125.3 tons now. Seatbelts can go on because we are fueled up, so let's put those on. And that now goes green. Barra ref, both are on 1013, which is the QNH. And then that is checklist complete. So we tick checklist complete, and that's done. Now if I press checklist again, it should, and it has gone to the next one, which is the before start checklist. And now we're not quite ready to run that. I need to just think through the flows. So first of all, let's go over here and look into the ground equipment and go to pushback. Let's put the pushback system on and call the tug. Good. Then we're going to run through our little flow. So thrust levers are at idle. We're going to put the beacon to on so that the ground crew are aware. Oh, and also, I suppose, yeah, ground equipment needs to go. Where you would have got rid of all the ground equipment first, to be honest, but there we are. So that's all clearing out the way. Okay, so everything's closed on there. Now I'll go to pushback, turn on the pushback system, call the tug again. Good, and that should go a bit better this time. Thrust levers are at idle. We've got the beacon on to alert all the ground crew. Passengers are all sitting down, and the external power. It does still say available, but of course we've got rid of it. We know that. By the way, if we look around the flight deck at some more details, just while we wait for a moment, look how big it is for a start. Absolutely vast, and you've got 1, 2, 3 jump seats at least. So yeah, big room. And then if we go through, So here's a look through that cabin interior. First of all, on the main deck, you can see the absolutely amazing detail they've gone to. Yeah, it's lovely. It's, I assume, based on a Emirates style interior, I think, but yeah, it just gives you a sense of how vast this airplane is. The seats go on forever and ever and ever. It looks like a short airplane in some angles, I think, but it just isn't. It's just because of it's so tall that it gives that effect. The doors are excellently modelled as well. You have the arming handle, you have the main handle, and you have the slide lighted armed illuminated lights and the pressurization lights. And here you go, here's the view from the back. Every seat has been modelled in such detail, even with the different sort of colours and textures between the different seats. Yeah, really great. And as you move forwards, you can see, look at that, all the different cabins, and yeah, you can see the different styles of seats are modelled. Now, a great bit about a 380 is, of course, there's a staircase. How cool is that? Everyone loves the staircase, and they've even got little lights on the side modelled. As we go upstairs, you can see the first class sort of suites. Absolutely fantastic. What a privilege it would be to ever fly in one of those. That would be very nice indeed. And then moving back, we have the business class cabin, also looking absolutely fantastic. Again, some pop-ins of textures and so on because of the way I have my my camera set up for these videos, I believe. But there we go. You can see that gorgeous wing out there. Fantastic. And I believe this is the bar. Yeah, look at that. So a detailed interior is included and looks absolutely stunning. Right, let's get ourselves back into the flight deck. Okay, so time for the before start checklist. Let's tick into that. And it is parking brake to release, takeoff speeds. Oh, sorry, parking brake is set, so I'm going to say that's done. Takeoff speeds and thrust check. So we have 137, 160, and we have the thrust sets in here. If I go to perf, I can see that there of flex 55. So that is all good. Tick. And that is checklist complete. I also know, of course, we have our beacon on, and one final thing we need to do is put the transponder on. Air traffic control would expect us to do that about now, before we push back. So to do that, you put your code in. So I can do that on here by going to Squawk and just typing it in. So on this panel, on the Squawk page, I can just type in 2547 or any code, and there it is. That's now ready. Go back to VHF. You could, of course, tune your frequency for use, but what we need to do to actually turn the transponder on is go to Surveillance. So up in the top left, click Surveillance, and in here, I'm going to put it transponder to Auto. And there we go. Good. Let's put this back to FMS, and now let's get pushed back. So we'll say we have clearance from air traffic control. I'm going to push back, and I want the what's our exit route going to be? Yeah, we're going to push pretty much straight back, as I always do. I always cheat. So let's release the parking brake. That's released. Just the same design as the 320, which is great. And we'll go backwards. So we can just take a moment to soak in how nice it is that this airplane is here in our hands in the simulator. It's just so gorgeous, it looks so good, and it really brings that 380 to life, and something we've all waited for so long. They've put so much work into it. We can't thank the FlyByWire team enough for the efforts that have gone into building this thing and to making it just so fantastic. And for free, I mean, unbelievable. Okay, we'll stop the pushback there. We'll set the parking brake, and we'll disconnect the tug. Waiting for tug pin. Good. Now it's time to start the engines, and it won't surprise you to hear it's incredibly similar to how it is on the A320. Only difference is the ignition switch is on the overhead panel instead of down here, but there it is. Now before we can start the engines, of course, we need air. Really, you'd have done this earlier than this, but we need to turn on the air conditioning and give ourselves APU bleed. So the cabin would probably be getting pretty hot right now with 400 people and no air. So yeah, let's turn the APU bleed on. That was supplied air into the packs. You can see the amber lights have gone out, and if we look down on the air page, is there an air page? Bleed. Now you can see that we have bleed going into the packs, which is good news. And of course, if we go to press, I think it will show us. Nope. One of these did show the conditioning. There we go. That's the page. It shows there's temperature going on in the cabin, but there we go. So now we have air running like normal. But we're going to use it to start the engines. So if I go to ignition start, just like on the A320, you'll see here that those packs should now shut down, and we should then get the pressure supplied to our engine start. So what I'm going to do is start 2 engines. We can start 2 at a time, so let's start 1 and 2. There you go, and now they have the pressure, and you can hear the air. You actually hear the fans go off while that starts. Fantastic. Ignition system A, N2, N3 spinning round, and those 2 will start up, all auto monitored on their own. They just go into these boxes whilst they're being started. So let's listen to some sounds on the outside. So there you are, some fantastic startup sounds as well. Let's start up to 3 and 4, and you'll see the same process. And again, check out the detailing. All the numbers all working in the correct sense. Ignition system A again over here. Little vibration numbers going up and down. Awesome, awesome stuff. After that, we'll have the normal after start flow where we'll do our flaps and so on. In terms of taxi routing, as we said, we're going to head out here and then down towards the runway. I love that you can just drag it. So out here, around and down, taking off, and there's our little green arrow showing us where the performance is from. This is a really, really neat idea because it is a common problem in aviation to this day of, I say common, it is a problem when it happens, so it's too common if it happens even once, right? And by that I mean when someone takes off from the runway, their performance was not for, whether it's a shorter runway, a different runway, it doesn't matter. You have to be on the right runway with the right performance. So it's a really good idea that this has this green arrow so you know that you are in the right place. I really like that. Engine springing to life now. We're available. Packs now come back online. All good. So we can run through like we do on our after start flow in an A320. First thing we would do is ignition switch back to norm. Then we would turn off APU bleed as we don't need that. We don't need any anti-ice, and we can turn off the APU. We now have electrical power from our engines. We would also arm the ground spoilers, center the rudder trim, and put our flaps out for takeoff, flaps to 1. And I'm going to set the trimmable horizontal stabilizer to our takeoff position. To do that, you look over here and you need to set it in line with the 39. So I'm going to run the trimmer and it should line up perfectly with 39.0. See the flaps, by the way, I quite like that they... There we go, 39.0. I like that the flaps are over here. I think that's quite a cool feature. So we're going with 1+F for takeoff, just like on the 320. I love that the PFD looks identical as well to the 320s, but there we are. Good. How many times can I say 320 in a video about a 380? I don't know. I'm sure many, many more. Sadly, the taxi button I don't think works right now. We don't have the cameras either. That's not a function available in Microsoft Flight Simulator. But there we go. After start checklist time. Tick. Anti-ice not required, so that's off, so a tick. And then checklist complete. You can see there it did check that we had the pitch trim for takeoff and the rudder trim at neutral. Good. Tick through that, and yeah, it's time for us to taxi. So let's re-center our map. We're over here. We would call it traffic, of course, but we'll put the nose light to taxi. I'll turn on the runway and cameras. Sadly, it doesn't work. But there we go. And now we can get ourselves underway. Big airplane, lots of weight. We're going to make ourselves a right turn to start with, which could be a little bit tricky. We'll see. So, parking brake release. I'm going to give it a bit of thrust. Oh, it's selecting things on here. I don't want that. There we go. Let's see if we start moving. Again, some really nice sounds from those engines. There we go. Give it a little more thrust. And then, now we're moving. Swing that nose around. Gorgeous. Can you believe the day is here that we can do this? Amazing. Now 380s are obviously huge, so they do tend to taxi quite slowly. They also need a bit of time because they've got so many passengers to secure and get ready for takeoff, so they don't tend to be able to taxi out and be ready to go in 2 minutes like some smaller aircraft can. Okay, we'll take this left here, we'll come back to idle on the thrust. I like that you can hear that clunk. That's the airplane hitting a nose gear. Also, check that out. You can see the reflection of my charts in that under the panel there. Amazing. And look at these little details all around the flight deck. See how that piece of trim doesn't quite line up perfectly? You know, it's this that gives this sensation of being a real machine. They've captured this Airbus texture up here perfectly as well. But I really, really like it. Come on, airplane, keep moving. It's so heavy. Now, if I zoom in, you should see, it's a little hard to show. There you go, you can just see the rear wheel on those trucks turning, just like it does on the 777. It's a very subtle effect. And there are some strange taxiways here in Haneda. But yeah, it does animate, that back truck does just slightly move. Good. Okay. Right, let's run our flight control check. So, I wonder if it will do it. Oh, there it is. Yes, it's down here. It's brought it up automatically. And we can go full left. Look at the taxiways. I don't know what's going on with the scenery here. And full right. And you can see how there's 3 markers for the ailerons on each side. Love that. Elevators full up, full down, and then rudders full right and full left. Great stuff indeed. Now, taxiing A380, it's big, it's slow. Don't do what I'm doing here and have all that power on, because it's just going to make your life really difficult when you try and turn it. You do have to oversteer though, as we saw. There is some in the charts, it is sort of required. What oversteer means is we just need to get the nose of the airplane past where we're going. But just be patient with the energy. It is a big machine, and if you just keep revving like that, you just get yourself in awkward positions. I do find that the thrust setting using an Xbox controller is a little bit tricky, but that's my fault for not having a joystick with me, because as ever I am doing this on my laptop. Now, once we get ourselves down here, we have our last things to do. So we're going to update our briefing, but we've got no changes to our takeoff, no change to the SID. So yeah, nothing else to talk about that. It's a flap 1 takeoff, so we'll just do it in the normal way as we would in our beloved 320. We don't need the weather radar on today. The weather's sort of just light scattered clouds. There we go. Bring the thrust back now and taxi out nice and slowly. But yeah, I love that sound effect of that clunk of hitting the taxi lights. That's great. And we would turn the weather radar on if we wanted it. Like I said, I'm going to go to surveillance and just check. Well, let's put TRA on the transponder. We've done our flight controls, and the only thing I can think of now would be auto brakes. Set that to takeoff, so you get brake RTO armed, and the takeoff config test, which is down here. All looks good. That's all green. So we'll do our checklists. Taxi checklist. Flight controls, we've checked both. Flap setting, config 1+F, and you can see it on both sides. That's good. And radar, we're not going to use on. Checklist complete. Right, the time is here then, so let's put our nav display to arc, as you would normally be. Let's gently get ourselves over to the runway. How fast do we get? 12 knots. I doubt any 380 pilots would take a turn like this at 12 knots, but there we go. Don't need that to be showing much really. Oh, not like that. There we go. And bring ourselves round. It's all clear on the approach. We'll put our strobe lights on, landing lights on, and put that to takeoff, which is good. I don't think we have any more checklists we can do. Lineup checklist, yes there is. Oh, just getting a bit of a glitch there in the old Microsoft Flight Simulator. It does that when if I click on too many things whilst also trying to control it. So we have a lineup checklist. So let's do that. Takeoff runway ident. So you need to check it is indeed the one you want, and you can see it there in amber saying 1634 right, which is good news. See the bumps as we come over. That's hopeless. That's the that's the scenery here. Making an absolute meal of this lineup. I am. See all those lights looking fantastic as well. All in the right position. There we go. That's more like it. Right, let's bring it to a stop here. Get the checklist done properly. So, takeoff runway. Both we know it's 34 right. We've got our little green arrow. All looking good. Tick. Cabin crew advised. They're advised. Packs 1 and 2 on. Checklist complete. What's the next checklist? It is the departure change checklist or approach checklist. So we're not going to do departure change. So yeah, we don't need that page anymore. Good. So we're ready to go. So finally, let's zoom out to a normal sort of range. There's our departure. Got this little vertical display, although it doesn't show our flight plan at the moment, sadly. Hopefully they'll add that in the future because that is a great feature. The 787 has it as well. Vertical situation display, very useful. Anyway, takeoff procedure is the same as ever for an Airbus. So, parking brake release. Then we're going to bring the thrust up, stabilize the engines. Runway head, there you go. All looks good, a little bit of forward pressure on the side stick, and then click through to flex MCT. So 2 clicks forward, looking for the FMAs to say, man, flex 55, SRS runway, order thrust is blue and armed. Away we go. As we get to 100 knots, side stick to neutral, keeping it straight with the rudder of course. Love the sounds, some really great sounds here. I'm surprised we're already reaching V1, but there it is. So we're through V1 and rotate. Rotate the airplane. Nose gear up, let it weathercock into wind. Positive rate of climb. Gear up. Now I'm not sure why it's doing that right turn quite so early. It should be 700 feet. I have flown this departure with it before, so it's probably something to do with what I've done. It's sequenced itself perhaps a little bit early. So there we go. Now we're at 700 feet, we can do the turn. And that's not uncommon even in the real aircraft actually to have some slight variation in the way it's coded in some airports. There's a little bit of an overbank there. It's easily done. It's surprisingly responsive. Nose coming down now as we come to accelerate. Thrust levers need to come back to climb, so you bring them 1 click back, climb, thrust climb, order thrust, and away we go. Next step is to, I'll just put the autopilot in, and on here, as we get above the green S, we can bring it up. If we had a green F, then we could go to 1, and then up above the S. So there we go. Up above the S, in they come. So we're in thrust climb, climb, nav, out, armed for 17,000. That is a flight level. I'm going to set standards. And there we go. Absolutely fantastic. Let's treat ourselves, shall we? Let's have a look outside. There it is. Can you believe it? Roaring away in our A380. Some amazing sounds as well. Now we're underway, guess what? It won't surprise you to hear that this is just a 320. That's how Airbus has their philosophy, and you'll see it all throughout. We're in thrust, climb, climb, nav, AP1, 1FT2 order thrust. This is all completely familiar territory for anyone flying the A320 family of airplanes. It's so as expected. The vertical modes are identical as well. I can pull and we can go into open climb. I can push and we're going to climb. I can pull up the speed and then wind the speed, and the airplane will adjust accordingly. So now it's going to target 260, and I can pull it into open climb to do that. I can pull the vertical speed and have it climb at a specific vertical speed, for example 2,300. It's all as you expect, which is really nice. It's a really familiar place to be. So let's take a look at some of the other interesting things around the flight deck, some of the little details they've added. First of all, footstool works as well as the tray table, which we saw. But look at this, they've even got the sunshades. Love that. And you can even drag this one out to whichever amount you want it. Covered in fingerprints as the real one is. I've spent many days wiping down the one on the A320. But there we go. Good. This navigation display works in a very similar way as well. You've got your VOR page, LS if you want it, but most of the time you'll be in ARC, and you might use plan quite a lot as well. You can see our vertical profile, so it expects us to be 10,000 feet higher than we are. So we've obviously fallen off the profile a bit. So there we go, thrust climb, open climb, and we'll continue back up. In fact, let's put it into managed climb. There we go. Now the handling, like I said, is oh yeah, by the way, of course, once the flaps are up, we can disarm the ground spoilers and take off the nose gear lights. Probably the runway turn off in camera as well. So let's disconnect the autopilot now and get a bit of a feel for the airplane. So autopilot off. Now what's really cool is you'll see the animations on the ailerons work. Look at that, just like they do on the real aircraft in all the different sequences. It's mainly using the inboard ones because it's to do with reducing the flex on the wings, so there's no point bending the outer tip of the wing. So the outboard one barely moves at the speeds we're at now, and as you get slower it becomes more alive. It's quite aggressive at times in returning to the neutral position. You'll see that there. So you bank the aircraft and then you let go, and it sort of goes back to where it was slightly, which is not something I experienced on the A320. I don't know if it's something that the A380 does. So you can see here a little bit of a roll back. So you have to be quite gentle with it. And if you do it slower, it's a little less pronounced, and you'll be a little more what you're expecting, I imagine. Now, we're not following the flight directors, so I need to turn off the flight directors. So I go off, and the airplane goes into speed mode, which is great. And we'll just do 300 knots for now. Brings me to my next point about the A380. It's a remarkably fast aeroplane. It doesn't look fast, you know. It looks pretty like it should be pretty slow, like a ferry, but it's a quick machine. I've been overtaken in my 787 by A380s going higher and faster than us. They have a surprising amount of speed available to them. They can also go quite high quite quickly, especially with lighter payloads, because they've got such a big wing. So it's yeah, surprising. But there we go. Let's just wind the altitude out of the way so it doesn't keep making noise. But again, that altitude horn there is correct for the Airbus. And this brings me to a great point about this add-on for free. It's that to have these level of Airbus avionics for free is remarkable. Again, it's so good. You have our marker here for climbs and descents. You have the altitude alerting horn there. Really, really, really great stuff. Just fantastic. Let's also try out some Airbusy things. So can I overbank it? Let's try and put it all the way through. It should stop at 66 degrees. And there it goes. Of course it does. FlyByWire have been doing this for years now. They know how to do the Airbus protections. If I put the nose down, it shouldn't go below that green -15. And there it is. It stops us there. And if I pull up, whilst we have a bit of spare energy, I wonder if it will show us the G-force anywhere. I don't know where that would be on this airplane. It shouldn't let us go through 30. And it won't. There we go. So let's get that nose down quickly before we run into low speed. There we go. Right. So it handles like an Airbus, it has the protections like an Airbus. Like I say, just a strange sort of slight rollback it tends to do, which is not something I've experienced before, but there we go. Next thing we can do is just going to try out, let's turn off the auto throttle, try out the low speed protections. So it's in thrust lock, bring this back to idle, that should clear that. By the way, it even has some abnormal checklists, so if you have something set wrong, like here, auto flight, auto throttle off, and it wants us to move them, so I can tick that, we've done that, close that checklist please. Yeah, you can find that certain things are available as a non-normal, even though this is considered not, you know, it's not very complete for the non-normals. I'm really impressed to see things like that available at this early stage. Fantastic. So if I raise the nose now, the airplane should lose speed, and I'm looking to see it just prevent itself from stalling really. I won't, well, to be fair, FlyByWire have done the full Airbus protections before, but we'll see what this one does. At VLS it shouldn't really do anything, and then it will get through to Alpha Prot in a moment, and it should lower the nose. And there it goes. So it's doing it. Of course it is. They know what they're doing. So that is correct. And now if I go full backstick, it should let me go all the way to Alpha Max, which is the red bar. Alpha Floor engages in the meantime, and there it is. And now it shouldn't get any slower, and it doesn't. So yeah, no surprise. Spot on for the low speed protections. Now I should be able to just push forward on the side stick to recover out of this. The thrust is sort of, I'm not sure, something's blocking me from doing that. So there might be a slight bug sitting somewhere in the recovery process for having going into Alpha Prot. But again, to see this model is really fantastic. The only problem is I should be able to get the nose down. If I try idling. Now let's have a look at some of the more normal stuff you'll be doing with it. I think there's a bit of a bug in the recovery there, but we have recovered. So now let's have a look at how you'd fly the airplane around. Let's say if you wanted to fly it on VATSIM. Well, let's get ourselves back onto our original route. So I want to go direct to the Beckler point, which was the end of my departure. To do that, I can simply go to my flight plan and see Beckler here, click on it, and go from present position from PPOS direct to. If I click that, and there it is, it draws the line, puts it into this direct to page, and on here I can choose to go direct. I can do I don't know if these are functioning right now, the course in, course out, and with the beams, but anyway, direct is there, insert direct to, and of course being an Airbus, thankfully it goes straight into nav mode, and it turns around and heads straight to the waypoint, speed out start 170 as well. So really great. That works just fine. If I want to then enter the hold, in fact, let's set up the arrival, because we haven't done that yet. Now on the Airbus you do set up the arrival before takeoff if you want. So we're going to click on RJTT now and do it ourselves. So RJTT there, selected arrivals, runway, let's land onto runway 34 left this time. It's quite a short runway, 3,000 meters, but we think we can do it. We'll do the ILS, and then we'll get this right. So let's do the ILS Zulu for 34 left, ILS 34 left Zulu. We'll come in via, and we'll do it via cream, and the start we'll go for is the Arosa 2 Charlie. There we go. If I go to temporary flight plan, there it all is. Insert. So now if we zoom out, you'll see that it's actually all the way down over there, and there is the full star. It's all a bit wibbly wobbly because that's how they do it. It just builds in delaying time. So what I'm going to do is head directly to a sort of intermediate point on that star. Let's go to Epsom. It's actually quite a late point. So yeah, I can modify my flight plan just like you'd expect. So Epsom, and then I wonder if I insert as next waypoint, what happens then? Ah, so this is how we would modify it to connect it. So let's go to our current position in the flight plan, Beckler, and then I'm going to put in the next waypoint, and I want it to be, this is great, and I'll go to Epsom. And there it connects. Look at that. Insert. And it draws at arrival. How good is that? Love it. Now, what I can do is put in a hold. Let's say we had to hold. They asked us to hold at Beckler. You click on it and just go into hold. 137, right hand turns, time 1.5 minutes. You could also do distance, of course, but we'll do time. Oh, let's do distance as I've confused it. There we go. 5. And temporary flight plan. Insert. And lo and behold, there is the hold at Beckler. Fantastic. And then once it's to set hold speed, if I go to manage speed, it would do that automatically and bring us back to our minimum clean. And there's the hold. Look at that. So this is a highly capable set of avionics we have available to us here that we can actually confidently do these things. Anyway, let's continue just setting up our arrival, and I'll let it join the hold in the meantime. So in terms of the flight plan, we have now got a hold and then an arrival that takes us onto an ILS onto 34 left. Then the radio nav aids can just be auto-tuned, but it won't surprise you to hear that the airplane will tune them correctly as it knows the runway we're landing on. It's got a 3-degree slope there, you can see. We can also go in and set up our performance. Now before we do that, actually let's look at our fuel, because we are overweight now. We can't land at 460 tons, we need to reduce that down. You can see here, minimum fuel at destination 11.2, so goodness knows how much extra time that would give us. Hours and hours and hours. So what I'm going to do is just go over here and just reduce the fuel down so we can get a landing in. Fuel, and we'll drop it right down. Of 20 tons. There we go. Fuel on board, 20 tons, and now our weight should be correct. Good. So, if I go to perf, and you can choose now your cruise performance, your descent performance, or your approach performance, and we can put in the wind. It is basically calm. I'm going to put in 340 at 0, outside air temperature of 15 degrees, QNH of 013. We'll do a config full landing, and I'll just put in minimums of 500 baro, but you can put them in whatever your chart says. Transition level on this arrival, I believe, is going to be 140. So flight level 140, this is for when you'll swap over to QNH. And there we go. So this is just like the page on the A320, and you even click straight through to the go around page and put in your engine out acceleration if you want to. So we have everything ready to go here. VLS of 131. How slow is that? Very slow approach speed of 136 knots. Much slower than the 787 approach speeds. That is just a function of this aircraft. It has that big wing, big flaps. It can slow right down. Really impressive. So we've done our flight plan. We don't need to do our secondary, done our performance, done our minimums. So yeah, I think we're in a good place. The next thing I want to set up is the brake to vacate. So this is a system where you can tell the airplane how to how much brake to use. You tell it, where you want to vacate the runway, and it will simply adjust the brakes accordingly. So if I zoom in, go to plan, go into the zoom range, you can see it's taken us to the destination airport. If you click on these two arrows, you can see airport select, RJTT, which is the one, and display airport, which it is, and we have it. And then it's got the green arrow for where you're going to land. So you can then click on the marker, 34 left is where we're going to land. For brake to vacate, select the exit. So it shows you the performance if it's dry and if it's wet where you'll stop, which I just think is fantastic. Let's zoom in again. So dry and wet. So I'm going to select Alpha 12 as my vacating point. Look at that. How cool is this? And it gives you the turnaround time you'd need for the brakes to cool, because you don't have brake fans. Not very common on long haul airplanes because they have longer turnarounds. So you have to account for that. So there we go. That is the brake to vacate setup. And I'm going to select this auto brake selector. It's a BTV, brake to vacate. And there you go. It's armed. How neat is that? Absolutely love that. Go back to arc and zoom out to a normal range. Good. Right, I think that's pretty much us set up for the arrival. Let's go to our checklists and we'll do the approach checklist. So I'll just scroll down one with the arrow. Approach, BARF, see that's to come. So yeah, no, I think we're pretty much there. We've set up our arrival. So let's leave the hold and carry on with the arrival as so much as we have it. I think I'm just going to hit delete on the hold and insert, and there we go, and now it will carry on. and it will accelerate onto its descent speed, and you'll see here it does have vertical navigation. 5,000 feet above us, it has a plan in its head of where it wants to be, how high it wants to be, and it does show that on the PFD, and it does it all the way down to landing, and it's really, really good. So we'll talk about that a bit later on as we go. Right, so let's begin our descent. Now, as you can see, while I was recording some other bits, we've got ourselves so high, we should be 7,000 feet, 210 knots. So I'm actually going to put myself into heading mode, so just pull that, continue in a straight line, and we can do a bit of descent as if we were being radar vectored by air traffic control. I'm going to wind the altitude down to 7,000 feet, and we'll do thrust idle open descent, and just like on the Airbus, the quickest way down will be to increase the speed in a thrust idle open descent, and then deploy the speed brakes. Speed brakes are here, we'll go to half initially. What's really cool is you can see the speed brakes deploy down here on the bottom left of the PFD. I just love that all these details and the unique things of the 380 are shown. Down we go, and it is actually surprisingly easy when this airplane's at a reasonable weight like this to get it to descend quick enough, or much quicker than you'd think it would. It's not as slippery as the 787 is in the descent. It just, look at that, it can go down so well. Big speed brakes, 4 engines, which gives lots of drag, I suppose. So yeah, there we go. Down we go, look at that, 7,000 feet per minute. Now we have the cabin crew are sat down, so that should be no trouble. Next we need to of course set the QNH because we're going down to an altitude. So that's done, and let's run our approach checklist. Power F, both sides are on QNH 1013, minimum's 500, auto brake to vacate, checklist complete. There we go. Now let's bring ourselves on a big left turn back round to Epsom. By the time we get there, it will be pretty easy to be down at 7,000 feet. So do a big loop round, there we go. And we'll start winding the speed back. Now, I did the descent in a little bit of a rush off camera there, but we are at 7,000 feet. As we pass through 10,000 feet, we would have made sure that the landing lights are on, seatbelt signs are on, and we'd bring up the LS button on both sides so that we have the scales available for our ILS, which we'll be doing shortly. You'll see here Epsom is 7,000 feet, 210 knots, so we should be seeing it automatically bring this target speed back in accordance with that, which it will indeed. We're also light enough that it will actually we'll be able to do that clean, which is just so impressive for a machine of this size. Delving a bit deeper into the automatics and the flight guidance, you can see here it has the marker for where it thinks we'll regain the profile if we use half speed brake. It also has the intercept marker and then the continue on down arrow, because I've put 5,000 feet in the window. Now that has a limit of 5,000, so if I put 4,000 in the altitude window, which is below that limit, you can see it goes magenta, because what it means is it's going to level off at 5,000 feet, which it shows here, because that is a restriction above the FCU altitude I've put in of 4,000. So clever. So it's all in there. This is not a light simulation of an Airbus. This is the real deal. You also see here the D for deceleration point, which is where the approach phase will automatically activate. When you activate the approach phase, just like on the A320, the target speed will become green dot, and then when you put more flaps out, it will bring the target speed back to each flap stage accordingly. Such a great feature. I wish the Boeing did the same thing, quite in the same way. But there we go. So 1,000 feet to go now. And we could just leave it, it's all in managed, you know, we're on the profile, it's going to maintain the restrictions. I'm going to put the window to 5,000 just because that's actually where I want to intercept the ILS from. Can't quite see it idented yet, but it will as we get a bit closer. And yeah, what we can also do is, you get little messages here and you can just clear them out. And these are, yeah, the message list, yeah, so they just appear at the bottom for the sort of random things that it wants to tell you, like if you typed in the wrong thing or something like that, that's something it can't use. But what we can also do is go to active perf, and in here in amber, activate approach, and you could activate it just like you would on the A320. So it's in the active perf page, that's where you do that in the descent. Just great. So similar to the 320, so enjoyable to use, and so much fun to learn because it all feels a bit different, but you actually can find it and it all makes sense once you get to it. Something to watch out for, and a slight quirk of this at the moment, is that it appears to put overfly points where they aren't needed. So this is Arlon, it shouldn't be an overfly waypoint. You should actually make the turn and intercept the ILS straight to Apollo, but at the moment you can see here that it's going to head straight over and then do the turn, which is a little bit inaccurate. However, it shouldn't make a difference because we can actually intercept the ILS from Apollo at 5,000 feet, so that should be absolutely fine. But what I will do now is activate the approach phase, activate approach, which is, and confirm. Now the speed will come back to the green dot, and we can put out our first stage of flap. Flaps to 1. The worst way you can say it, flaps to 1. But there they are, slats coming out on the leading edge. It won't give us any flaps, I don't believe. Very much like the A320, surprise, surprise. Round the corner we go, and now we have India Hotel Alpha, so we can see our ILS 111.7 correctly identified, and we get our localizer marker. 180 knots, we're actually quite far out, 18 miles, so we'll just keep going at this gentle pace for now. We want to enjoy the A380, really soak it in. Look at the fuel though, a lot of empty tanks, goodness me. That's quite unnerving to look at. We actually still have 16 tons, which is loads of fuel. You can remember on a 320 you can only fit about 18 tons typically, so yeah, that is quite something. You can arm the approach button just like a 320, or you can arm the localizer first. I'm going to do localizer only because I can't actually see a glide slope indication yet, so I don't really want to arm that a bit far out. So hopefully now as it comes around the corner we will get localizer active. There we go, lock star, so it's now capturing that localizer. Once I see some sort of evidence that there is a glide slope working in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I will arm the glide slope. Now I will say now, I had some issues. Oh, there goes a glide slope beneath us, so that's a bit strange. So anyway, I'll arm the approach, glide slope's beneath us, so we're going to do glide slope from above. Let's give that a go. I'm going to wind the FCU outshoot out of the way. We've got the approach armed, and I'm going to pull the vertical speed now, and we'll do 1500 feet per minute and try and recapture it. So yeah, same procedure as it is on a 320. Let's also get some flaps out, so we'll go flaps 2. Go on airplane, 700 feet per minute is not enough. Keep going please. And you can even hear that distinctive, just missed it there, but I can tell you now there is that distinctive high-pitched whine of the flaps travelling, just like there is in the real aircraft. There we go, glide slope is captured. I don't know why that happened out, so you know why it was missing until so late, but there we go. Doing 180 knots, 12.4 miles. We've got the drag out. I think we're actually in quite a good place here. Just heading through these clouds. We just need to get a little bit closer to the glide slope. We'll put in a go around outshoot as well of 4,500 feet. There it is. Good. And once it captures that glide slope, I'm imagining that speed will gently wash off. Still out at 11 miles. Plenty of room here. So quite an exciting picture that, quite nose down. Love this livery, so cool. Available on flightsim.to. I think I've had a bit of a glitch here with my sounds, so apologies for that. I seem to have lost some of the turbofan sounds in the front. It's gone very quiet. 190 knots at 9 miles now. We are a little bit too fast here, so let's try out some speed brakes on the approach. Just go full, see how powerful they are. Out they come. Powerful speed brakes on this machine. Really good. Put those away. And let's put the gear down. It's a bit early, but we'll just get the airplane configured. Gear down. Ground spoilers armed. There's the radio altimeter, 2,500, which makes sense because that's the altitude. And the radio altimeter. Landing light on. Taxi light. Landing light. Do the runway turn off. I don't know when this switch would be used, to be honest with you. We know it doesn't really do much in this simulation. Look at the wear on the switches as well. Very cool. And we'll go to the next stage of flap. Flap 3. Oh, there you go. Our sounds are back. That's good. And yes, the main landing gear does indeed tilt forwards as you expect it to. Quite distinctive on the A380. And we'll go flaps full. Our landing memo looks good, but does our checklist agree? Landing checklists. Yes, it does. Checklist complete. Great stuff. So yes, there's a bit of an issue with the terrain elevations in Microsoft Flight Simulator and Haneda, so we shall see if this this matches up. We've got 2 whites, 2 reds, so that does look good. On the other runway it wasn't quite working. Look at the scenery. I know we're just around the corner from Flight Simulator 2024, but I still think we are absolutely privileged to have such a good Flight Simulator 2020. With so many updates they've given us. Okay. So we're all stable at 1,000 feet. You can of course go Cat 3 dual. If I click that, AP1+2, Cat 3 dual, and you'll see that this stuff works just as you expect it to. So we can make it do an auto land if we fancied. It's 1,000 and stable. All configured correctly. Right, let's give it a go at landing. Now we've got brake to vacate, so we don't need to touch the brakes on landing. We're simply going to do a completely bog standard Airbus. I'm going to flare about 30 feet. Big wing, big ground effect. I didn't see any issue with the landing when I tried it out earlier. What the real pilots do I can't tell you, but I imagine it's pretty similar. Because like I say, big ground effect of that wing and a nice slow approach speed. So 30 feet, flare, idle, let it touch down, and roll out. And we only have reverse on the inboard 2 engines. They didn't put it on the outboards, saves weight, and it would just blow up a load of mud off the side of the grass anyway, so we didn't want that. So yeah, strange runway configuration here at Haneda with these runways all over the place. It goes into land mode, so the FMAs are working as well. It's fantastic. Let's get autopilot off. Because the only thing that is happening, and it happened to me earlier, is that there does seem to be, like I say, a bit of an issue with the elevation in Haneda, where it takes you too low in the final part. That's not the airplane's fault. That is something to do with Microsoft. Anyway, here we go. Coming over the thresholds. Feels all natural and normal.
50, 40, 30,
flare,
20, retard,
idle,
5,
touchdown, reverse. It's that simple. Nothing else to do. Nose gear down, and now you can see brake to vacate arrived. It's in rollout mode, although of course we're in manual landing. So brake to vacate now should, if I zoom all the way in on our map, should show us the exit that we wanted. So see that blue line? That's showing us the target, and then it suddenly kicks in towards the end of the roll, which is correct according to the fly-by-wire documents. Now, we've got slightly different taxiways out the window, but there we go. It's brought us to a stop right by where we want to come off. Brilliant. Anyway, we won't vacate, set the parking brake, go to forward idle. And there we are. Welcome back to Haneda. So that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it's been interesting for you. This is a fantastic aeroplane and an unbelievable piece of freeware from FlyByWire, who've done an amazing job bringing this to life. Easily the best A380 simulation I've ever seen on a home simulator, and it's a rare one to get. We don't get to see these very often, so it's so nice to have it recreated in such lovely detail. You'll have great fun flying this around on VATSIM, or just enjoying the experience of taking the world's largest commercial passenger aircraft into the sky. It looks lovely, it sounds lovely, and it is completely capable under the hood as well. Thank you again to FlyByWire for making this available to us all, and for all of your hard work and time that's gone into making it. It's just so lovely to see. And thank you all for watching. There'll be plenty more videos, guys, live streams coming on the channel, so do please subscribe if you'd like to see those. Otherwise, we'll see you again in another video or live stream later. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.